All right, we're super excited that you are here and you're joining our webinar, which is called The 3 Secrets Only 1% of Families Know. And we know that you're busy, so we're promising that this session will be the most rewarding 45 minutes you've ever spent working on your family. We're going to really give you some tactical tools right here that you can implement today. So let's get started. We speak with a lot of families, and we just want to highlight a few things where does this sound like you? Do you feel sometimes like you're tired and you're burnt out and you're wondering, why is this so hard? Everybody's told me that parenting is supposed to be fun. It's what they show in the movie. So why am I not having fun? And when we're going through some of these, I want to reiterate, every family will feel this way at one point, one way or another. So you're not alone. And also, we're going to give you some really, really helpful tools that can help you get the joy back into parenting. And sometimes you may feel like you're losing your patience. You yell and then you feel so guilty about not necessarily being the parent that you want to be. So we have moments as parents that we feel like a failure. And again, you're not alone in feeling this way. I think every parent at some point will feel like, oh, I wished I handled that better. You might be thinking, why is my kid struggling? I'm at a loss of what to do. Or maybe you're thinking, I feel like I'm doing so much, but everything I do is backfiring. Or finally, it might be something where you feel like there's a specific issue, like my kid lacks confidence, or they're so worried. I feel like they're not reaching their potential, or they're not keeping up with the other kids. Again, rest assured, if this sounds like you, one, you are not alone. And two, stay tuned because we're really going to give some tactical tools today in this webinar that you can use with your family.
So in this session, we're going to cover 3 little secrets and tweaks you can make that are going to make a very big difference in that parenting. So first of all, how to build a deeper connection with your child so it'll feel stronger, more connected, and also so you can have the results that you want. And we've seen this change with their families. We're also going to talk about how you can hold boundaries to be able to get stuff done with your child without yelling, screaming, and really doing things that might not feel good and might impact the relationship with your child. We're going to be talking about the most common mistakes that we see our families make and how to avoid those pitfalls. And then we're also going to be talking about how to really focus on those things that you do have 100% control over. And what are those things that you can do to make a big impact in your family? But most importantly, what we're going to be doing is really unlocking that superpower that you have as a parent so you can enjoy parenting more and see the results of your efforts.
So we know that you are here because you want to be confident in your parenting abilities. You want to make decisions in your parenting that you know will help your kid grow, become independent and resilient. You're also here because you're willing to grow and put in the work. Because we all know and we recognize that parenting is hard, but we also want to make it an incredible and rewarding journey because we know that it can be. And you're also here because you really cherish and value the relationship with your family. Now, you may be wondering, what about Manatee? Well, Manatee is here because we know those families. We know the families that cherish their relationships, that really putting in the work, that are growing. But nonetheless, we know that mental health and behavioral health, they're challenges. So Manatee is a virtual mental health clinic that supports families in whatever challenges that they're hoping to overcome, whether it is really strong feelings of worries, anxiety, whether it is feelings of sadness or more depression, or whether it's just like every single interaction may feel like a battle. So what we've learned from all the amazing families that we're serving are some 3 key secrets that will make a massive difference. And we didn't want to, like have to keep that a secret, right? We wanted to share those because sometimes these shifts will make a huge difference. So who am I? My name is Damayanti Dipayana. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Manatee. I started Manatee because here you see me with with my brother, not a brother, my brother, and he had a ton of mental health and behavioral health issues. So as a younger sibling, I already understood kind of the challenges and the impact this had on my family, the friction, the worries, the stress that my parents were under. So then I, founded Manatee, and I saw such a big need for families across the US, where I'm like, so many kids are struggling, so many families are struggling, and everyone has the best intentions. Everybody wants to make their family work. And then I'm also a parent myself. So here you see like a picture perfect family. We have three kids. We're dressed up as Frozen, as you can see. But I also want to highlight that in reality, it's very much this. It's like having dinner, quickly needing to send another email, a baby on my lap who's banging on the keyboard, and lots of laughter, but certainly not always smooth sailing. So in this webinar, I also really want to share some of the parenting kind of realities that I've learned.
And I am Dr. Mercedes Ormendi. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I have a lot of experience working with kids and families for the past decade or so. And one of my passions is helping parents really unlock their intuition and their ability to be the best parents that they can be. I come from a large family, there you can see, and that really started getting me really interested in parenting when I was young, and really trying to figure out, why do some parenting strategies work better for some families than others? Why do some parents seem to enjoy be able to connect with their child more? What's the difference between those families? And after my training and clinical experience, I realized there's some things that parents just are missing. They don't know. We have it in the research, but we just need to share it with parents. And that's what we're here to do today. And so there you can see, big family at my graduation. So I'm really looking forward to sharing these 3 secrets with you all. So the first one is, kids must struggle. And I know, trust me, I know it's hard. It can be really hard to watch a child struggle, not be sure of themselves, or feel like they can't do it, be crying. They can be mean to themselves. It's hard to watch. But what happens if we become the snowplow parents? So that's a little image right there. If we take away those obstacles, right? So if they're having a hard time getting into the soccer team that they want, maybe you start talking to the coach and helping them get into the team, or you are able to help them in other ways. That can help them be happy in that moment. So you're parenting for happiness, but you're not really able to parent for resilience. What ends up happening is kids get the message that what really matters is being happy in that moment, not working hard and being able to overcome those obstacles. They also get the message that they're not good. They can't do it on their own. They need mom or dad to come and remove those obstacles for them. So if we think about what that does for the future when they're adults, you're not going to be able to be around and go talk to their boss if they're having a problem at work. We want them to be able to be independent, be resilient, and be able to do those things on their own. So it's really important to be able to let them struggle and work on those things and abilities by themselves. So the next piece is, when we think about anxiety, there's 2 crucial components. One is that uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, these past 2 years have really taught us that we don't know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable. But then anxiety has another component. It's also not being sure that we can handle whatever life is going to throw at us. And we, as parents, we tend to focus more on that uncertainty, right? So focusing on promising that they will be able to make new friends at the new school, or that that shot won't hurt as much. But we don't really know, do we? So what we really want to focus is on the second part of the equation, helping kids really develop their ability to cope and their confidence that they can handle and they can cope with whatever happens. And the bonus is that's what builds resilience.
So kind of putting that into the real life of us as parenting and into the heat of the moment. So what does this actually look like? What does it actually look like when we help our kids in their struggles, but don't resolve it for them? What does it look like when we focus on their ability to cope? So there's certain things that you can say. So, if, for example, if your kid is super worried about getting that vaccination or a shot, instead of saying, like, hey, focusing on the uncertainty part to Mercedes' point, saying, like, hey, the shot won't hurt. It's just a little prick. It's 5 seconds and it's over and done with. Instead, maybe saying something like, you know what? You've gotten through tough times and you're able to do it again. I don't know how much it will hurt, but I know that you can handle it. Another thing is, instead of jumping in, actually like letting your kid think through and problem solve. So instead of saying, like, hey, they may have gotten a bad grade for their class, instead of saying, like, hey, why don't I just call the teacher? I'll give them a call, see if we can retake it, etc. Just sitting down and asking, is there anything I can do to help? Do you want to make a plan together? What steps should we take? Another really great example is, maybe your kid didn't get invited to a party, or maybe they didn't get invited to the team, they didn't get the nomination or the selection. Instead of saying, like, oh, let's go and get ice cream, or I'll take you on a trip and we'll forget about it, because it's hard to see our kids sad. Maybe just letting them sit in it for a little bit and focus on them overcoming that challenge too. It's like, oh, you didn't get invited to that party. That really stinks. Do you want to tell me about it? And then finally, sometimes that was a thing that's really hard is, it's hard if there's a problem or an obstacle or challenge that may feel really big for a kid. For example, they may be really worried moving to a new school and, like, how will they even make friends? Sitting down with them and, like, we don't have to solve everything. Just take the next steps. What's the next thing that you can do? What's the smallest piece of that puzzle? Maybe it's just sending your friend requests to your new classmate. That might be a new next step that you can do. So those are just some things that you can say when you really want to help your kid through the struggle, but not solve it for them. And, really kind of solving for their ability to cope. So again, focus on their ability to do hard things, because you have to remember, even though sometimes it feels really hard, I also don't like to see my kids cry, but you're not, quote unquote, making them suffer. You're actually helping them practicing a crucial life skill. And then I also want to share just two quick strategies that you can try if it's really hard. And one thing is time boxing. Sometimes it's really hard to not step in, but you can help your kid time box it. So I know that, you really don't like playing soccer right now, and it's a new team and you don't want to go, but let's try it for 3 months. Let's just try it for 3 months. And if you still don't like it after 3 months, we can figure out next steps. So time boxing is a really crucial skill, or a really helpful strategy for kids, to make it not feel overwhelming, and it's something that they commit to, and you still make them feel uncomfortable. And then the final one, I already gave a few examples in kind of the scripts and the things that you can say, but following and don't leading. So again, what do you think that you can do? Really taking a step back, and you'd be really surprised on how kids can problem solve. So things, I really like talking in analogies, thinking about, well, you're the boxer, I'm the coach. I cannot absorb the punches for you, but I'm in your corner to help you if you need me. So just to kind of wrap it all together, kids must struggle. It's really, if you want to solve for happiness, that's when you're going to drive anxiety. So we cannot make our kids happy all the time. It cannot be a goal in parenting. So we're going to focus on, how do you build a world where the anxiety is limited. So in this case, no anxiety, uncertainty, and our ability to cope. because uncertainty is a given in life. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what will happen. So we have to focus on our ability to cope, because that is what's going to build the resilience.
And now we're going to go to the second secret, which is connection before correction. So do you catch yourself feeling days or times with your child where it's just gridlock? You feel like you're just constantly telling them, don't do this, pick up your clothes, put your dishes away, and just feels like they're not listening, or that you're just getting attitude, or it's just really a lot of conflict. Well, you're not alone. And one of the reasons that happens is because you're focused on that behavior. So this is a really helpful image. So when we think about an iceberg, we only see about 10%, and that's what's above the surface. But there's a lot what's going on underneath. And for kids, we see that behavior. And don't get me wrong, those are hard behaviors to watch, and they can be very frustrating and angering. And for those of us that like being on time, can make it really hard for us to be on time to things when they may not be complying with what you're asking them to do. But what might be going on underneath is actually a different need. And they're responding to that. They're seeking that safety and connection. So when we think about what's going on underneath, usually what ends up happening is we categorize it in 3 different buckets. The first one is this response that they have when they're feeling stress. And so that one is fight. So these are the behaviors that we tend to notice the most. And I want you to start thinking about if you've noticed your child showing any of these behaviors. So when they're in fight mode, that means that their brain is active and they're not feeling safe, or they're feeling threatened in some way. It might not be physical, but emotionally, they're not feeling safe. And that might be when they're yelling or hitting, kicking, slamming doors. Sometimes these behaviors are called oppositional, non-compliant. They tend to be when you get calls from school. This is when their brain is not feeling safe. Second bucket, if their brain's not feeling safe, sometimes they might respond differently. This is the flight. And this is when kids try to run away, or they seem to not pay attention. They seem a little fidgety, uncomfortable. And this is more when we see that anxiety. Usually we might call it kids being scared or panicky. But we want to pay attention to those too, because that's communicating something. And then finally, the last one, freeze, is another way kids show us that they're not feeling safe. And this one's a little bit harder to identify, but it's really important because we do see it a lot with the kids that we see at Manatee. So when kids are in that mode, in that freeze mode, they might just shut down. That might be when you get arms crossed, looking down, and they're not really engaging or listening to what you're saying. Or they might want to be alone, spend more time in their room by themselves. Or they just might say, I don't know, and shrug their shoulders. And this is oftentimes when we call kids that are looking more like they're depressed, numb, bored, oftentimes, especially teenagers, not showing interest in anything. It might be something else going on underneath. And it's really helpful to understand what are those things that are driving the bigger behaviors. So then you can respond to that connection first. And I'm not saying don't correct at all. So we're talking about just understanding what's going on beneath the surface first before you correct.
So again, as a parent, I really want to understand, what does it actually look like connecting before correcting my kid? So we have a few scenarios that I'd love to go through, because this certainly has all happened in my household. So the first one is like, well, say for example, my kid really wants to stay up and finish a movie together. I can say something, but maybe just start like, to your point, fight, flight, freeze. They might either ignore me, shrug their shoulders, pretend they didn't hear me, kick, yell, tantrum. We all know the ordeal. So would love to hear kind of like, what are some of the things that you can say if your kid really wants to stay up and finish a movie?
That's a great question. So first, what you want to do is really focus on that connection. So what is it they're needing in that moment? So you could say, hey, baby, I know you want to stay up and watch a movie together. I love watching a movie with you too, but tonight is a school night, so you have to be in bed in 10 minutes. Let's watch 2 more minutes and then we'll go to bed. We can watch it tomorrow. So it's still acknowledging that that's what they want. You want to connect with them. You want to spend time with them. And they still have to go to bed. That's what's best for them.
Right. Yeah, I think whenever we really like validate and acknowledge, like, we know what you want. I hear you. It totally works.
Yeah. And
Right.
actually, what's one more thing. So what's interesting too is we might be tempted to say, oh yeah, stay up that extra half an hour. But we're also communicating by doing that is actually, if you're awake and ready for school, is not that important. Or if you're feeling crummy the next day because you're just dragging all day because you didn't sleep enough, that's not as important. So by saying, hey, you want this, but this is better for you, you're still communicating that care and love for your child.
Yeah. Second one, I know this one's really tough because it creates emotions. And I know the third one, example we're going to have, is probably even tougher, but your teen comes home way past their curfew. And
Ugh.
yeah,
this
I
is
can see some responses.
this is a tough one because parents are also kind of triggered, right? Parents are worried if their child is okay, or they might feel disrespected. There's a lot of things that come up for us as adults in this situation. What's best is in that moment, your child comes in, you see that they're late. You can take a deep breath and say, I'm glad you're home. I'm very angry that you're late. Try to say this as calmly as you can. Are you safe? Are you okay? Go to bed. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. That time when it's past curfew, you're tired, you're angry, understandably so. They're probably anxious and worried, tired. That's just going to make things flare up and really more conflict instead of less. They're not going to be ready to really have a conversation yet.
Yeah. And I think, really, to your point again, like, connecting by acknowledging that you care about them, as like, you're worried. Like, I'm really happy that you're safe. I'm glad that you're home. I get
Exactly.
that you want to stay up and stay out. It's fun. I'm very upset. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And then the next morning is a different story. You can help them brainstorm what happened. Did their phone die? How could they prevent it in the future? And help them understand how that impacts you too, and how worried you were, because you do care about them.
All right. Last but certainly not least, sharing is hard. Imagine a scenario where one sibling has never happened in my house, definitely happened in my household too. One sibling hits another for not sharing a toy or for not sharing something. What can you say and what should you do?
This one's again is hard because a lot of emotions come up for parents. And especially if there's other people watching you, other parents, you might feel even more inclined to respond a certain way. But what's important there is again to really take a second to think what's going on underneath. Like Dama said, sharing is hard. So maybe stopping and in a firm voice saying, I know sharing can be hard. I know you don't want to share your red truck with your brother, but hitting is never okay. Let's take some space. And what can you do to make it better for your brother? Can you apologize, or can they do something nice for their brother? But again, highlighting you understand that sharing is hard, but hitting is never an option and is never okay.
Yeah. And one thing that we also think about a lot is, and this is a great example for that, it's like the feeling is okay. And that's where you can connect. It's totally fine to feel upset. It's totally fine to feel sad or disappointed when you're not getting what you want, but it's not okay. And then we go into the behavior to hit or to bite or to kick or whatever it may be. But connecting is really key there too. All right. I love these. All right. So everyone, remember, connection does not mean lack of boundaries. So Mercedes, I don't know if you want to add anything else to this final point before I close this one out.
Yeah, and this one gets misunderstood sometimes. The idea that you want to have a strong connection with your child does not mean you want to give in at all times, or that you're not going to hold your boundaries. That is actually the opposite and ends up not creating a good connection with your child because they see you as a pushover and not as someone that can create that safety for them. Kids actually need boundaries, and that helps them feel safe. So you still want to make sure you hold those, but you acknowledge what might be going on underneath for them.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the struggle as a parent and acknowledging that it's not always obvious and it's not always easy. So these were some scenarios that, can be more challenging, but we also know that it might be slamming the door or saying really hurtful things or maybe even physically hurting you. So we acknowledge that it's not easy to connect before correct. Sometimes the last thing that you want to do as a parent is connect with your kid after they've done something hurtful to you. And also, it's not always obvious, meaning it's not always obvious that what your kid needs is connection. If they slam the door, say, like, leave me alone, I don't want you here. I mean, that doesn't scream connection, right? But actually, that's probably the one thing that they need. So I'm going to go through like a little step by step of like, what if those behaviors are really strong? What can you do as a parent to still connect before corrects? And you probably and very likely will not get this right all the time. No one does. So know that the times that you do get it right, give yourself a high five. So step one, again, not saying that this is easy, but try to stay calm. And if that means taking a step away, do that. You can say something like, I'm feeling a lot of big emotions right now. I need 10 seconds. I'll come back to you. Totally fair. Then maybe in those 10 seconds, you can pause and ask yourself, what else might be going on for my kid? And that's really where you force your mind to think, well, maybe it is connection, or like maybe they're feeling really insecure because they think their sibling is smarter and they just got a bad grade. And that's why they slammed the door, right? So it's not the slamming the door, it's actually like they need to feel that connection around their insecurity. And that's when you can open up. So try to take that pause. And then if you see a big behavior, you can bet that they're in fight, flight, or freeze mode, which means that you cannot rationally talk to them. It's like, it's impossible. Their brain is not functioning that way. Like, you have to calm them down first. So your goal is not to correct them. It's not to discipline them. It's not to like rationally talk about stuff. Your goal in that moment is to calm them down. That's the only goal. So once you've recognized that, that means you can regulate and reconnect. So what does that look like? So some of the things that Mercedes already mentioned, but it might be something like just getting down on their level if you have a younger kid. So making eye contact, just holding their shoulders gently and saying like, let's take a few breaths together. It might be something like, if it's a teen, for example, who's telling you to get out of the way and I don't want to talk to you ever again, it might be like, I know you really want your space, but I grabbed you a glass of water. I'm going to sit outside your room. I will give you your space, but I'm here if you need me. I'll just give you a few seconds or a few minutes or whatever it may be, but I'm here to talk with you if you need me. So know that whether it's a breathing exercise, whether it's like hugging them, whether it is saying that you're there for them and that you love them over and over again, just focus on regulating them first. So calming them down and reconnecting. And once you've done that, that's when you can help them problem solve. Now you can ask them things. Now you can talk about stuff. So now you can ask questions like, can you tell me what happened? Or how are you feeling? Do you know how you're feeling? And really help them problem solve and think through it. Like, if it's something like they may have slammed the door or hurt someone, it's like, well, we now know how you're feeling. We now know what happened. How could you have done it differently next time? And really help them problem solve there. So again, it's not obvious always, it's not easy always that your kids need to connect before you correct them or give them guidance. But here are 5 steps that you can take when you're in the heat of the moment.
Okay, and now we're on our last secret. So the third secret, be who you want your child to be. And this one takes a little bit more work on your part and really thinking through, who do you want your child to be and who are you at this point? So with kids, it's so important to not do as I say and not as I do, because they really are watching us at all times. They're watching how you speak to the waiter when they bring out the wrong meal. They're watching how you respond to your mom that might make a snarky comment at you. And they're watching how you solve a conflict with your brother, right? So all those times that you might just be watching TV, they're actually watching how you respond in those moments. And they're learning, okay, that's how it's done. And you may say, speak politely and be kind. But if that's not what you're showing them, they're going to learn what you do. So we really want to be mindful of what we're showing our kids. And it can be hard. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what you can actually do.
Yeah, a few things before we go into some fun scenarios too, but a few things that you can do. First and foremost, Mercedes will be the first person to tell you how important it is to have a unified front. So team up with your co-parent. It doesn't have to be your co-parent, but whomever is really important in your kid's life, make sure that the values that are important to you and your family, they embody too. And if not, have that conversation. So once you've identified and teamed up with your co-parent, talk about what values those are. I would suggest you can't have 17, then they don't mean anything anymore. So maybe identify 3 values that you really want to pass down and that are important to you. You can even label them your family values. It might even be a really great idea to include your kids into this conversation and really get the buy-in around like these are our family values. And then this is the hard part. It's not the easy part is identifying. The hard part is actually modeling them, because it's easy to say like, oh, it's kindness. I want to be kind all the time. And maybe you're in a car, you're late, and somebody's really, really upsetting you, and you don't have a moment of kindness in traffic. Totally can happen. But then communicate that. So modeling those values is important, and then keeping each other accountable. So if, for example, that happens, it might be, a co-parent or a kid that keeps you accountable, that says like, hey, mom, that didn't sound so kind. And then have that conversation. Be like, yeah, you're right. I'm working on it. I'm really going to try better next time. I lost my cool in the heat of the moment. And then finally, that intentional one-on-one time is key. And again, I have 3 kids. This may sound like an impossible thing to do, but even a 15-minute mini date, like grabbing a hot drink somewhere or, reading a book together, something like 15 minutes makes a real difference where it's just you and your kid. And those are also moments not only to really connect, which, we talked about in our previous secret, but it's really around the time also that you can showcase those values that are important to you. So these are just like 4 steps that you can take as a family to really acknowledge what are your values so that you can be who you want your child to be. So let's talk about a few scenarios, because I know that parents are really, this is great one, because I know that parents are dying to figure out like, well, how do I have a kid that wants to learn and try new things? Like it might be really scary. It might be that you're suggesting something, your kid is always like, no, I don't want to, or like, I am not good at this. I suck at this. So how do you get your kid to learn and want to try new things? Mercedes.
Yeah, actually, I was working with a family, and the mom had been talking about she wasn't good at sports, and she had just never felt that she was a good athlete. She didn't feel she was coordinated. She just couldn't do it. The way that for her, she was showing this growth mindset and really trying to help their children see that it's okay to try new things and not be good was she joined a volleyball league. And she was not very good because she hadn't played before. And it was hard. And her kids would go and watch her, they would cheer her on and watch her struggle and miss. And it became a family affair to keep on trying and helping mom train. Right. So by showing her kids that she's willing to pick up new hobbies, learn new things, struggle through it, get frustrated. She's showing that that's an important value and that it's worth putting in the effort.
Yeah. And I think one additional thing that comes back time and time again that we talk about a lot is like the value of showing your kid your failures, that you're not perfect. And that's so great about that family. It's like the kids clearly can see that their mom may be failing at some trainings. And then what happens is that failing becomes much less scary for your kids too, because they don't see failure as failure. They see failure as I'm learning. It's an opportunity to grow. And it's part of winning. Like you cannot learn something new without failing.
Exactly.
All right. Second one, you really want your kid to be focused and pay attention.
This is a hard one because of our phones or devices, but really thinking, how much time do you spend with your child being focused and paying attention? How much, or with your spouse? How much time, are you really present versus pulling out your phone or looking or trying to watch TV while you're doing something else with them? So, really trying to show that when you're talking to them, you're going to be present and focused. Again, you won't be able to do this all the time. You're going to make mistakes. We're all human. And helping your kids and your spouse, if you have one, really help you stay on task with this and call you out in a loving way. So, for example, one way is to set some guidelines around dinner table and putting devices away. And that's device free dinner or meal times. But you might look at your phone for a second because you're worried about your boss calling you or you're waiting for an email. If you do that and you catch yourself, show your kids that you're willing to recognize that you made a mistake and acknowledge that, hey, I'm so sorry. You're right. Our rules or our values are to not have our phone and be really present. And I took it out and I realized I was getting distracted with this email. I'm going to finish reading it after dinner, but I'm sorry I did that. So again, you're showing that you're really valuing being present together.
All right, last one. This one is probably one of the more painful ones to watch as a parent. But I think as a parent, you've all seen those moments when your kid says, I suck, or I'm ugly, or I can't do this. And you really just want your kid to be kind to themselves. What are some things that we can do here?
Yeah, fostering self-compassion. It really does start with us first. So learning to rewire our own brain and catch ourselves when we're being mean. So when we're saying things like, oh, you're so stupid, you forgot this again, or oh, I, oversalted the noodles again, or I can't do anything right. Kids pick up on that language. For some of us, also body image, right? So if you're looking at yourself, you're going shopping with your child and you try something on, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I look so fat. This looks horrible. What? Oh my God. And taking it off, saying, oh, it's not the right size for me. Right. So all that communicates much more love and acceptance. And this is another great opportunity to catch yourself when you may say something a little mean. And you could just say, oh man, I was being really mean to myself. Let me say a nice statement instead. How can it be nicer to myself? That's too mean. So then your kids can start developing that kinder inner voice.
Yeah. So all to say, remember, kids learn by watching. They learn by seeing you do what you do. So if you want your kid to learn new things. If you want a kid to be focused and pay attention, be focused at the task. If you want your kids to be kind to themselves, be kind to yourself and make sure that you show yourself the love and compassion that you deserve. All right.
Okay, so in summary, there's the 3 secrets of parenting that we covered today, and that really do make a difference for families, not just now, but long term. So the first one is that kids must struggle. It's good for them to struggle. Maybe hard for us parents, but it really does help kids. Second, connection before correction. Wondering what's going on underneath and how can you connect with them before and help them regulate. And then finally, being who your child, who you want your kid to be, and thinking about those values and how you can show them instead of tell them.
So first and foremost, I'm so excited that you joined this webinar and really think it's amazing that you took 45 minutes out of your day to think through and think about, like, how can I be better as a parent? How can I grow? So we first want to acknowledge that. And then secondly, if you're ready to unlock your parenting superpowers, implement these three things. And if you want any additional help doing this, and if you really want to work with a team of experts in getting that implemented, or help you with any other challenges that you may need, you can book a free 20-minute consult today. You'll speak with an expert, you'll speak with a therapist, or you can speak to a care navigator or a care coach that can really help you think through what are the challenges for your families and how can we help you solve them. And again, like, we want to do this together. We know that you can do this. Let's first kick off and have you implement those first three major secrets and major shifts in your parenting. And if you need any additional help, which I know that we all do, just click below, click that link, see how we can help your family. It is totally free. It is 20 minutes of your time. There's access right now. It's a really flexible schedule. We can support you even in the later in the day, in the evenings, or even in the weekends. But either way, click below and you can see how we can help your family and really help you unlock the superpowers that you have as a parent. So thank you again for joining, and I hope to speak to you soon.